I have gathered the predictions of 7 different content creators, and from that I've gone ahead and worked out an average league table prediction. So the 7 content creators' predictions that I've used for today's video to formulate the table are my own, James Lawrence Alcott, Benjamin Bloom, Matt SB, Gab Sutton, Not the Top 20 podcast, and the Second Tier podcast. I've gone through everyone's 1 to 24 predictions, and from that I've put together one big prediction table. All the links to these great content creators are in the description down below, but without any further ado, let's jump in. So coming in at the bottom of the collective table, it is Sheffield Wednesday with an average league place in between the 7 content creators of 22.87. Funnily enough, only Matt SB has Sheffield Wednesday to survive. He had Wednesday the highest placed out of everyone in 20th. Every other content creator currently has Wednesday to go down. Now, to be fair to Wednesday, it took a little bit of time to get the ball rolling, but these past few days they have started to get some more deals over the line. It's always the risk with doing predictions this early on because a lot still can change between now and the end of the window, but Wednesday have got a point to prove to everyone. Just above them we then have Rotherham with an average league placement of 22.57. Only one content creator had Rotherham outside the bottom 3, and that was James Lawrence Alcott. Everyone else did have Rotherham in the bottom 3, so another side looking to prove the content creators wrong this season. And then as the final relegation spot, it's QPR with an average league placement of 21.86. To be fair, not everyone had QPR in their bottom 3. James Lawrence Alcott, being the QPR fan he is, didn't have them in, but he didn't actually have them highest out of everyone. That was Gab Sutton, who had QPR all the way up in 18th. Despite that, they still are dragged into the bottom 3 because of the average of everyone else having them down there. Just avoiding the drop, we then have Huddersfield with an average league placement of 21st in the table. Now, I think most people's collective thoughts on Huddersfield are perhaps they've not made massive strides forward so far this summer, but a lot of people still have that faith in Neil Warnock. Very similar story with Cardiff. Most content creators and the predictions that I've seen so far have them just outside the relegation zone. The only person to have Cardiff going down of the predictions that I looked into was Matt SB, who had Cardiff in that final relegation spot going down in 22nd place. Everyone else had them just outside. Next up then we get to Plymouth, who are in 19th place on this table, but they had an overall average of 18th place. There was quite a variety in the Plymouth predictions really. The boys over at the Second Tier podcast had them all the way up in 12th place, which was the highest anyone went ahead and predicted them. Interestingly enough though, no one had Plymouth in their bottom 3, which I thought was quite interesting. Next up we get to my side, Preston North End, with an average league placement of 17.57. Now in my personal predictions I had Preston 17th. I think will be lower mid-table, but some people had us even further down. James Alcott went bold with this shout and even had North End to be relegated. The highest anyone had Preston predicted to finish was 15th. That was both Matt SB and Benjamin Bloom, and that brings the overall average to around about that 17th, 18th place. It's a massive jump when we get to Hull City. They had an average league placement of 14.57, but there was such a range in where people think Hull will finish next season. The Second Tier boys had Hull all the way up in 7th. Gab Sutton has tipped them to finish in the playoffs this season in 6th place, but then you've got the boys over at the Not the Top 20 podcast who have them all the way down in 19th, and then you've got me, Benjamin Bloom and Matt SB, who all have Hull sort of lower mid-table, so a real wide range of predictions when it comes to Hull this upcoming season. Bit of an unpredictable one. Bit of a range when it comes to Blackburn as well. The lowest anyone had Blackburn predicted was 18th. The highest anyone had Blackburn predicted was 8th. I had them somewhere in the middle of all that. I went ahead and predicted them to be 14th, and that's around about where the average is for Blackburn right now, with an average of 14.14 in terms of a league placing for next season. Another big range when it comes to Stoke City as well. Then next up with an average league placement of 13.29. Gab Sutton had Stoke lower than anyone else at 19th, but James Lawrence Alcott actually went ahead and tipped them for the playoffs in the end. He had Stoke all the way up in 5th. And I mean, I'm fascinated by the whole Stoke project. I still really like Alex Neil from his days at Preston, and feels like they're really in the swing of a massive rebuild right now. They have brought in a lot of quality this summer. It's just a question of whether Neil can get all of that to click instantly. But Stoke have been quite a few people's nightmares in predictions in years gone by. Quite a range of predictions when it comes to Watford as well. I had them in 15th. Gab Sutton had them 16th, not the top 20, 15th. But Benjamin Bloom did go big on this prediction, predicting Watford for a top 6 finish. Obviously putting a lot of faith there in Valérien Ismaël to get things clicking. West Brom were quite a tough one to call. Hull, they've got an average league placement of 12.57 based on everyone's predictions. I had them really slap bang in the middle, 11th place. The highest anyone had them predicted was 9th place, both Matt SB and James Lawrence Alcott going for that. The lowest anyone had them was Benjamin Bloom at 18th. Then as we do get into the middle of the table, it's Birmingham coming in with an average prediction of 12.29. I was actually lower on Birmingham than anyone else. I had them 16th, which was the lowest of the 7 content creators that we've used for this experiment. The highest anyone had them was the Second Tier podcast, having Birmingham in 9th at the moment. Totally get the good vibes at the club, and I could be proved wrong by the end of the season. I just think that a big overall rebuild may take a little bit of time before things properly start to click. But I certainly think it'll be a much more comfy season for Birmingham compared to what they've been used to over these last few years with the new ownership. Sneaking into the top half now, we have Bristol City, also with an average league placement of 12.29. I've just put Bristol City slightly above Birmingham because someone had Bristol City predicted to finish 8th, which is higher than anyone had Birmingham to finish. But generally like the progression that Bristol City have made over these last few years. A lot of people had them in and around this mid-table region. Into the top 10 we go. Swansea had an average league placement of 11.86, which was good enough to get them a place in the top 10 based on these predictions. Quite a range. The biggest disparity in predictions when it came to Swansea was between Gab Sutton and Matt SB. Matt SB has Swansea to finish 18th. Gab Sutton gone bold, predicting Swansea to make the playoffs, obviously putting a lot of faith in Michael Duff. After that we get to Norwich, who had an average league placement of 11.57. A real split of opinions when it comes to Norwich. The Second Tier podcast, not the top 20, and Gab Sutton all had Norwich in the bottom half of the table, whereas myself, James Lawrence Alcott, Benjamin Bloom and Matt SB all had Norwich in the top half of the table. Me and Matt SB actually had Norwich higher than anyone else, predicted to finish 7th right now. So no one predicted Norwich to finish in the top 6, but a fair few went bottom half of the Canaries. Millwall just love an 8th placed finish, don't they? And that's exactly where they fall in this league table prediction. Everyone's predictions that I took into consideration for this video did have Millwall in the top 10, but only one person had Millwall getting over the line and making it into the top 6, and that was Matt SB, who had Millwall in that 6th place. And then just missing out on the top 6, we have Ipswich with an average league placement of 8.14. Found it really funny actually that Benjamin Bloom, the Ipswich fan, actually has Ipswich predicted lower than anyone else. Ipswich are getting a hell of a lot of hype right now, and everyone, to be fair, has got Ipswich in the top half of the table, which says a lot right now. Second Tier podcast, and not the top 20 especially, did go big on Ipswich, with them having them 2nd and 3rd in their league table predictions, which would be a massive season for Kieran McKenna's side. Making it into that first playoff spot, it is Coventry. Now everyone had Coventry there or thereabouts. The lowest anyone had Coventry was 11th, the highest anyone had them was 3rd. In the end, 4 of us did have Coventry finishing in the top 6, those 4 being Matt SB, Second Tier Pod, Benjamin Bloom and myself. Do think that despite the loss of Gyökeres, still some really positive business has been done at Cov so far. In 5th place with an average league placement of 5.43, it is Sunderland. Only 2 people had Sunderland outside the top 6. Matt SB and Benjamin Bloom had them just outside. The biggest anyone went on Sunderland was Gab Sutton, who had them all the way up in 2nd, and then everyone else had them filling up a spot in the playoffs. And then we get into the top 4. Coming in 4th place with an average league placement of 4th on the dot, it is Middlesbrough. Everyone, without fail, did have Borough inside their top 6. Everyone had them in the playoffs apart from Benjamin Bloom, who actually tipped them for automatic promotion. But I think the general consensus is that Middlesbrough will be strong again this season, with most people thinking they'll be there or thereabouts in the promotion pack. Coming in 3rd place, it's Southampton, the first of the newly relegated sides coming down from the Premier League, with an average league placement of 3.57 based on everyone's predictions. Interestingly enough, no one has Southampton to win the championship this season, although 3 of us, including myself, did have them for automatic promotion coming 2nd. The only person to have Southampton outside the top 6 was Gab Sutton, who has them down for 7th. Big job and a big point to prove that Russ Martin's got this season with Southampton. Coming in 2nd place, we then have Leeds United with an average league placement of 3.14. The Second Tier podcast, the only people who had Leeds outside of the top 6, and 3 people actually went ahead and tipped them for the league title. Those 3 being not the top 20, James Lawrence Alcott and Matt SB. Really looking forward to seeing what Leeds have got in their locker this season. They certainly have a manager in Daniel Farke who knows how to win the Championship. With Leeds though, there's always some twists and turns along the way, and I can't wait until they all unfold throughout the season. And coming in and winning the Championship, according to everyone's predictions, it is going to be Leicester City with an average league placement of 1.86, higher than anyone else. 4 of the 7 content creators have tipped Leicester to win the Championship this season, myself included. Everyone had Leicester predicted to finish at least in the top 6, with the lowest anyone had them to finish being 4th. That was not the top 20. I think a lot of people see the potential with Maresca, the strength they've already got in that side, and how they've already gone ahead and added to it throughout this window so far with some big money signings. I get the quality that they have lost, but they are the favourites for a reason, both with the bookies and with the content creators right now. But there you have it, guys. Based on the 7 content creators, that is what the Championship table will look like come the end of the season. Do you agree with those shouts? Let me know down below. If you've not gone ahead and checked out all of those content creators, then make sure to go ahead and do so. Links to their channels will be in the description down below. But apart from that, guys, that will now wrap it up for today's video. If you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. And I'll see you all in the next one.